Hey y'all, it's November. I have many plans for the months after, so let's not waste... Oh, now what? Sir, there's someone here to see you, and he looks mighty pissed. I don't know, I've been busy. Well, let's see who it is. Oh. Hello. Why? What did I ever do to you? Well, I mean, you do look good for a giant radioactive reptile turning 70. Okay, look, if it'll make you happy, I'll look at your first solo movie. I mean, it'll be around your birthday, right? You like a good birthday gift, right? Oh boy. Ordinarily, I would be doing a season finale before doing Patreon and holiday stuff, but I'm going to save that for after all that is done, so I have a little bit of closure before my semi-retirement. Anyway, it seems we're going to be starting off the month by talking about the first appearance of another famous movie monster I've only ever talked about once before on this channel. Japan's very own king of the monsters, and the progenitor for both the tokusatsu and kaiju genres of TV and film, Gojira, or as he's better known internationally, Godzilla. I mean, it's only fair. I only ever covered one of his movies, which he co-starred with King Kong, and with 70 years and 38 movies in total under his belt, both Japanese and American made, why not at least review his first movie like I did with King Kong? This would be the first of 15 in the original series of Godzilla films known as the Showa era. Showa, meaning bright peace, was the period when Emperor Hirohito ruled Japan from 1926 to 1989. Its development goes back to February of 1954 when the Japanese Toho Studios began working on a war film titled In the Shadow of Glory. However, the film's production would be cancelled after the Indonesian company, Perfini, pulled out due to increased tensions between them and Japan after the latter took control of the Dutch East Indies during World War II. Unable to negotiate with them, producer Tomoyuki Tanaka decided to go with a different kind of movie involving a giant monster while on a plane trip home to Japan. The idea was inspired by two recent factors: the American monster film, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms in 1953, as well as an unfortunate incident involving the crew of a Japanese tuna fishing boat called the Lucky Dragon No. 5 that got caught in the fallout of the Castle Bravo hydrogen bomb test at Bikini Atoll in March of 1954, where they became contaminated and suffered severe skin burns and stricken ill with radiation sickness, with one crew member even dying 6 months later. Through various drafts, including what the monster would be, things slowly came together and only took 3 months of filming. Tanaka would produce the movie, with directing credits going to Ishiro Honda, who had previously worked alongside acclaimed Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, and written by Honda, along with screenwriter and fantasy novelist Shigeru Kayama, and screenwriter Takeo Murata. Now, the version we'll be looking at is the original uncut Japanese version released on November 3rd, 1954. As the American cut, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, released in 1956, is heavily altered with 16 minutes worth of footage cut and extra footage featuring actor Raymond Burr added in to give American audiences someone to better identify with. Whew. Okay, now that we have all that out of the way, let's finally talk about the original Godzilla, the way it's meant to be seen. As the opening credits play out, we hear some loud, booming footsteps and some occasional roaring. Knowing my experience with these movies, I can't really play everything out, but here's a really small sample up to the title card. As the credits continue, we hear the movie's main title theme that would later become a mainstay for the franchise. The film's music was composed by the legendary Akira Ifukube, who would eventually do the music for almost all of Toho's kaiju movies for the next 40 years. But this is where he got his start. After that, we truly open on the Eiko Maru, a freighter ship where a bunch of sailors are just taking it nice and easy until a big bright light starts flashing in the ocean. It starts knocking everyone out, the ship bursts into flames, takes on water as they get an SOS out, and they die. Well, that didn't take too long to establish the main threat. Quite effective though. The word does get to land though, as they end up calling Hideto Ogata, played by Akira Takarada, who operates South Seas Salvage. With him is Imiko Yamane, played by Momoko Kochi, who's in a relationship with him despite being engaged to someone else we'll meet later. Anyway, he meets with his superiors and such to discuss what happened. They relate this to an incident with the Myujin-sho volcano erupting, but otherwise they have one of their other ships, the Bingo Maru, already heading on the scene. I'm sure the next one will be fine? Well, luckily some survivors are found by a local fishing boat from the nearby Odo Island, and it sounds like they got the names at least. I'm sure the third time's the charm? Yeah, just barely 8 minutes in and already 3 sea vessels got wrecked from whatever the hell is blowing them up. People are panicking as they don't know what's become of their loved ones or whatever. Speculation runs through the news. It's quite a mystery. Back on the island, the people see a rat and find one of their own in it, Masaji. He's unable to say what it was that got him and everyone else. To make matters worse, it seems no one can catch any fish. It seems one man has an idea of what is doing this. Godzilla. Jeez, don't have a cow, man. Now the name Godzilla, or Gojira, is actually a combination of the Japanese names for gorilla, which is Gorira, and whale, which is Kujira. It really shows the inspiration they had at the time. Hell, at one point Godzilla was imagined as a giant octopus. Well, at least the idea wouldn't go to waste, since they used it for King Kong vs. Godzilla. As reporters arrive by helicopter to learn what's going on, we learn more about this Godzilla creature. According to local island folklore and superstition, it's a giant sea monster that was said to come ashore and eat people once it ate all the fish in the sea. They even believed that sending young girls out to sea to be sacrificed would appease him when the fishing was poor. That and a ceremonial dance they are currently watching was originally used for exorcism rituals. That night, a typhoon brews, and you'll notice how they're making use of models to achieve the kind of effects they want. In any case, we then see Masaji lying in bed, when loud thunderous booms are heard outside, startling him, his mother, and his younger brother, Shinkiji. The latter runs outside to see what is going on, with Masaji failing to stop him, and well... Can you not see the house being destroyed? I know it's nighttime and there's a storm going on, but it doesn't look that dark out to obscure your vision. According to the following scene, this event caused 17 houses to be destroyed, along with 9 people and some livestock dead, as well as the reporter's helicopter being smashed. This is brought forth to the National Diet Building in Tokyo, where witnesses discuss what they saw. Further backing their claims of something crushing their homes is paleontologist Dr. Kiyohei Yamade, played by Takashi Shimura, who also happens to be Imiko's father. Well, it's a good thing they're taking this seriously to grant his request. Normally you wouldn't get a response like that. Despite the dread we've had so far, at least the civilians can still cheer on our heroes going to investigate. But wait, who's this guy in the sunglasses? And is he wearing an eye patch? Apparently, this is Dr. Daisuke Shirazawa, played by Akihiko Harada, and he is the man that Imiko is engaged to. He ain't coming along though, so we'll have to wait for his contribution to the plot. For now, the investigation team arrives on the island and finds some areas to be radioactive. They also find a giant footprint, which is also radioactive, along with a trilobite, a marine arthropod that supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. A warning bell is rung, meaning something is either approaching or already here, and as everyone climbs the hills with weapons in hand, in hopes of driving it away, they end up seeing well, maybe not the most impressive reveal for these monster movies, but I suppose we got enough of a build-up that this could be scary. I mean, if it's big enough to be peeking over that hill, it has to be ginormous. Also, the filmmakers originally intended Godzilla to be eating a cow during this bit, but the effect was cut as it didn't look convincing enough. Funny, it didn't seem that bad considering this was just a hand puppet. However, given the size of the cow, which would be 5 meters in comparison with Godzilla, it probably would have thrown off a sense of proportion with the monster. As for Godzilla's iconic roar, that was accomplished by recording the sound of a raisin-covered glove rubbing against the strings of a double bass, then altering the speed and pitch to simulate what a giant animal would sound like. The result? Utter awesomeness. After evading the creature, they go back and discover more footprints on the beach, along with a huge tail track, suggesting it went back to the sea. They report their findings and compare what they saw to a dinosaur. Dr. Yamane names the creature Godzilla after the monster from Odo Island Folklore, and states that it must stand 165 feet in height. He theorizes that Godzilla must be a member of a species of prehistoric subaquatic reptile, and due to the large amounts of radioactive isotope, strontium-90, found at its footprint, proposes that the creature was reawakened by the recent hydrogen bomb tests in the South Pacific, which also mutated it and destroyed its underwater habitat, forcing it to abandon its sanctuary and find a new home near Odo Island. There seems to be a metaphor to all this, but I can't imagine what it is. Oh well, I'm sure it'll come up later. For now, Representative Oyama says they shouldn't tell the public about this, given how it ties to the bomb tests because it might harm any diplomatic relationships. But one female representative says they should tell the truth or else it might harm the public. Well, here's another realistic scene. The government won't do anything that might help the people to save their own asses. Well, despite setting up a disaster center to do something, there's been a total of 17 ships sinking so far. The public definitely knows what's going on, given what this one lady says. Yeah, it's slowly becoming apparent where this is all going in terms of allegories. For now, the effort is being made to destroy Godzilla, with the Japanese self-defense force to detonate depth charges in the ocean, declaring the monster dead. Oh, how wrong they are. As for some of the grainy footage used here, Toho was able to get help from the Japanese Coast Guard to film some of these scenes. All this news of the attacks, and Dr. Yamane is upset that they're attempting to kill Godzilla, given he's a paleontologist and all. That night we see a cruise ship full of people dancing together. I think even the couple from the train are here too, and uh-oh. Hey, he was just having a nice bath. Leave him alone. At this rate, they might have to close their international lanes, but that won't be good for the people, so they ask Dr. Yamane if there's a way to kill it. He responds with how Godzilla has survived the H-bomb, so it'd probably be better to study it at this point. This makes the news, and reporter Hagiwara is asked to go interview Dr. Serizawa, as he's Yamane's future son-in-law. Of course, through a discussion with Ogata, Emiko says that she's always saw him as like an older brother, while Ogata feels bad that Serizawa lost an eye during the war. They're all planning to see him to discuss their relationship, and apparently Yamane decided to adopt Shinkichi after everything that's happened. That's nice. Now here's Serizawa, and he heavily reminds me of Goro Majima from the Yakuza games, just in looks, and obviously this is way before his time. In any case, Hagiwara believes he knows people who are working on a breakthrough to defeat Godzilla, despite Serizawa denying as such. Once he leaves, Serizawa agrees to show Emiko what he's been working on. Inside the lab, we see a large fish tank, and right away, Serizawa demonstrates what he's working on. Well, damn, what did he do exactly? We won't know for a while. Before she leaves, Shirazawa has Emiko swear to keep what she saw a secret. This leaves her quite bummed out, as she was never able to tell him about her and Ogata. But no time for that now, as Godzilla rises up from Tokyo Bay. You guys, you have to know that won't work, and you're literally about a mile away. As people evacuate, Yamane tries telling the JSDF not to shine lights on it or that'll make him angrier. Well, too late. Here comes Godzilla walking on land. So while earlier we had just a hand puppet, here we have more of the actual suit. And the history behind its making is a bit extensive, but interesting nonetheless. Eiji Tsuburaya, Toho's special effects director at the time and renowned father of Japanese special effects, suggested going the stop-motion route with the monster like with King Kong, but was told that would take 7 years to do so, so they decided on using guys in suits, which would later be referred to as suitmation. The term is meant to differentiate from the term dynamation, which relates to Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion design. However, the process involves monster suits within sets made with models, or pretty much anything that can be cheaply obtained from a hobby store. From the times I've covered these kaiju movies, we've seen just how awesome they can be regardless. Art department chief Akira Watanabe and sculptor Tezu Toshimitsu were influenced by a children's dinosaur book combining the traits of a Tyrannosaurus rex, Iguanodon, and a Stegosaurus's dorsal plates, along with pointed ears and fangs, giving off the impression of an oriental dragon. The suit would be constructed by the Yagi brothers, Kanju and Yasui, along with model maker Eizo Kaimai, and would be worn by actor and stuntman Haruo Nakajima. However, as this was the first movie to use suitmation in this way, while it would be effective with bringing the monster to life, it did have its drawbacks. For instance, the Godzilla suit itself weighed 220 pounds and was really stiff and cumbersome to move around in, and the barely visible eye holes in the neck made it difficult for the actor to see out of. Plus, there was no padding inside the suit, which meant Nakajima would suffer skin rashes from the rough fabric interior. And along with the heat from the hot studio lights, the actor would collapse from exhaustion after the temperature inside the suit would reach up to 130 degrees. It's said that a cup of sweat would be drained from the suit each day after filming. Damn! But if you think that's bad, the prototype suit that was built before was worse, as it didn't move at all due to the latex it used to make it harden like a rock. But it didn't go to waste, as it would be cut in half with the bottom half fitted with suspenders, so it could be used for close-up shots of Godzilla's feet stomping around the city without exhausting the actor. All of Godzilla's scenes would be shot with a sped-up camera, with the suit actor doing all his acting at a much faster pace than normal, so that when the footage is played at the regular 24 frames per second, it would make Godzilla's movements appear lumbering and heavy, allowing it to feel more realistic. And to show off the illusion of size and scale, most of Godzilla's scenes would be shot looking up at the monster. Whew. But yeah, all that work just to have a single monster break stuff. Imagine if they did more monsters later on. Now, Godzilla's time on land is brief, as he causes a train to crash onto his foot, before picking up one of the cars in his mouth and tossing it away, as well as tossing a bridge aside. Then he just goes home, because he's satisfied, I guess. As research teams from around the world gather, a plan is in motion to set up a perimeter to try and electrocute Godzilla should he come back. They'll use 30-meter electrical towers along the coast of Tokyo and shock him with 50,000 volts. Naturally, they evacuate the city. Meanwhile, Ogata plans to ask Yamane for his consent towards Emiko. Well, I guess the old movies can make mistakes, but Yamane is still sad that everyone would rather kill Godzilla than study its resistance to radiation, while Ogata argues that it's not good to let it run loose since it's literally like another H-bomb hanging over them. Yamane says that's exactly why they should study it. This does still show that Godzilla is a bit of a tragic figure in this story. Within this movie, he's literally just a giant animal that only became this way due to human action. While you feel pity for it, it is understandable why people would still need to defend themselves. Anyway, the military gets into position right as they see Godzilla playing in the pool again. He comes onto land and proceeds to just rip right through the electrical towers. No amount of gunfire or electricity seems to do a thing, and here's what we see for the first time. Godzilla making use of his signature atomic breath. Well, this was before they got fancy with their special effects. He still does the thing with the dorsal spines on his back glow, seen here as he sets fire to the city, and to anyone unfortunate to stand in the way of the attack. Not bad for 1954, wouldn't you say? Oh, but here come the Tank Corps. Will they be of any use? Nope. Anyway, between that and some of the fantastic shots of Godzilla from a distance, it really shows just how devastating he can truly be. It might not be as widespread or instantaneous as the A-bomb from before, but the results are still the same. Everything is bleak and almost hopeless. This one mother and her kids are in so much despair that she's even saying, that pretty much implies that the father died at some point, either fighting in the war or from the many bombings, so they'll be joining him in death. Assuming they do, we don't see what happens with them, but it's heavily implied that they were killed. And yet the news still needs to document this. The world might be destroyed by this creature, and at this point the military seems to have exhausted all options. And yes, they were stupid enough to keep flashing lights in front of the damn thing. Spoilers! No, they won't. Well, gotta give them props for committing to the very end. Some Saber jets show up at the last minute to try and take a stab at him, and nothing works. However, they do lead him back to sea, which gives everyone some reprieve from the chaos. But now the hospitals are filling up, and people are coming in injured, irradiated, or even dead. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Seeing all this death and despair, Emiko decides to break her promise to Serizawa and tell Ogata what he showed her. Through a flashback, we see Serizawa drop a small metal pellet into the tank, which causes air bubbles to rise, and then... Jeez, Serizawa, what the hell did you do? Okay, basically it caused the oxygen atoms to turn into fluid. He discovered this through experimentation with oxygen and was pretty horrified by what he had found. Just one small ball could reduce all life in Tokyo Bay into nothing. Even if he did it in the interest of science, he knows that if turned into a weapon, it could lead to human extinction. Much like with the creation of the H-bomb. That's why he's determined to keep it secret until he finds a way it can benefit society. Looks like that day is now, as Emiko and Ogata visit Serizawa and try to convince him to use the oxygen destroyer. He, of course, refuses and then proceeds to try and destroy his research. He only stops when Ogata gets a head injury, though Ogata once again tries to convince him they need it for this occasion. Serizawa is only worried that using it would be like opening Pandora's box. Every politician would want to make use of it and may try to coerce him to reveal his secrets. And then they watch a news broadcast on TV. This is another song by Ifukube, as performed by the Toho High School of Music. Wait, they had a high school? Nah, must be a coincidence. This is a very somber moment since we're reminded of how much harm Godzilla has caused, and the people want it all to end. Hence, it's a prayer for peace. This can also correlate to the constant firebombings of Tokyo during World War II, or even the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. With that, Serizawa agrees to use the oxygen destroyer against Godzilla, while destroying his notes to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And so, everyone gathers at sea to find out if this can truly defeat Godzilla. For it to work, Serizawa needs to dive down since it can only work underwater. Ogata doesn't want him going alone, since he doesn't know how to dive, and insists he'll come along. They get in their diving suits and take the plunge. I've never seen anything this beautiful in the entire world. Alright, give me the bomb. So, I'm not sure what exactly happens here. While they track Godzilla and prepare to use the oxygen destroyer, Serizawa taps Ogata on his shoulder, Ogata then tugs his belt and starts rising, and then he's calling out to him. Like, did Serizawa force him up, or was Ogata expecting him to come back with him? Either way, he's pulled back onto the ship right as Serizawa activates the weapon. As it seems to take its toll on Godzilla, Ogata keeps calling out for Serizawa to respond. Damn, that's one way of getting someone's blessing. Now, does this weapon actually work? Well, that was depressing. Celebrations are in order, but they must also mourn Serizawa's sacrifice to the world. That can be the movie's ultimate message. Continuing to develop these weapons of war might cause further devastation, not just for us, but for nature as well. After all, they too get caught up in our warfare. In this movie's case, it caused one creature to retaliate. This was all the consequence of wanting to one-up each other in the arms race, and essentially the movie not only gets you to care for the humans affected by all this, but the monster as well when he's inevitably defeated. And considering how often you end up coming for just the monsters, that's impressive. Now, for the time it was made, it was another step forward in filmmaking with how special effects are done to bring these grand visions to life. When you watch the movie, it doesn't feel like you're seeing a man dressed in a rubber dinosaur suit stomping around miniature buildings, but instead a city and its people suffering from what looks to be a real-life disaster. Godzilla is more than just a monster. He is a force of nature, no different from an earthquake, a tsunami, or a hurricane. While a victim of warfare, Godzilla is literally atomic destruction given physical form. He leveled an entire city, injured or killed thousands of people indiscriminately, and displaced many others. And unlike King Kong, who had some semblance of emotion and interest for others, Godzilla shows absolutely no remorse for anyone or anything, seeking only to annihilate those who dare disturb his slumber. The performances in this movie were also really damn good. Like with Yamane, you get his conflict with wanting Godzilla to not die while understanding why it needed to happen. He even takes it out on Ogata and Imiko, who, of course, have their own problems trying to be together despite an arranged marriage. Oh, and of course, Serizawa's guilt over creating another terrible weapon that could be misused, and his willingness to sacrifice himself to save the world while taking his secrets with him. Ifukube's music throughout the film helps carry you through every vital moment with its well-crafted instrumentals, from the battles with Godzilla to the final moments with Serizawa. The themes used, especially the main title track, would be repeatedly used many times over in future movies. It's so good. All that together, and it makes for a really strong first impression. I really like this movie for what it is and what it would later inspire down the line. Anyone interested in exploring Toho's line of kaiju films should definitely check this one out. Now, all that I mentioned before definitely contributed to the movie's success at the Japanese box office. From its 62.9 million yen budget, accounting for $900,000 in the US, would make back around $2.2 million worth. It also led to a sequel movie, Godzilla Raids Again, the following year. While Godzilla would remain dormant afterwards, with Toho focusing on other kaiju movies like Rodan, Mothra, and others, he would make his return in 1962 with King Kong vs. Godzilla, which kickstarted a whole line of Godzilla movies where he would face off against other monsters in Toho's lineup, and slowly transform him into a sort of kid-friendly superhero. While the Showa series of films would come to an end in the mid-70s, the franchise itself would be revived during the mid-80s and throughout the 90s with the Heisei era, then again in the 2000s with the Shinsei era, or Millennium era, and again currently with the Reiwa era that started in 2016. And let's not forget his run in the US with a cartoon show by Hanna-Barbera that aired in 1978 to 1979, the 1998 remake by Roland Emmerich, which critics and Godzilla fans alike panned, And currently we have the MonsterVerse series, which started in 2014, where Godzilla would square off or even team up with his fellow rival, King Kong, in a couple movies featuring him. Most recently, from Japan, we had Godzilla Minus One, which despite mixed reviews in Japan regarding certain themes, was given international critical acclaim. It even won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, being the first Godzilla movie to do so. It took a long time, but it's great to see them receive such recognition. The franchise has come a long way and has a ton of variety, from dark and depressing stories with anti-war and anti-nuclear messages woven in, to action-packed fun with monsters fighting each other and smashing buildings. No matter what happens to one Godzilla, there will always be another to grab our attention. So, here's to 70 years of Godzilla, the undisputed king of the monsters. Happy birthday, Big G. Of course he is. Hey, welcome back. So, what did you think? Well, I'll think about it. It all depends on YouTube's copyright bullcrap. Yeah, sure. I'll take you up on that. Right, you have fun with that. And to everyone else watching, I'm the Media Hunter. Media is my prey, and reviewing them my way.